Hey, welcome to the Steve Davis Show. Special guest is Rob Evans, Hall of Fame, New Mexico Hall of Famer, and also a legend of New Mexico. And Rob, hey, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, Steve. It's just a pleasure being on. It's a pleasure to visit with other New Mexicans.
Well, our story goes back to, and maybe go back further because, and you didn't know this, but, I watched when I was in high school and stuff. I was going up to the Las Cruces and watching Las Cruces. My cousin lived there, and I go up to the dorms, and you don't even know this, but I'd sneak off and go to the practices. And I'd be one of those little kids up there in the deal. And then, Lou Henson and yourself recruited me, and and I chose to go to New Mexico. But I want to thank you because you never held anything against me. I mean, that just shows the character of you. And like I followed your career, you had followed my career.
Well, Steve, hold it against you. I mean, you made a great decision. As I did when I came out, I decided to go to Mexico State, decided to go to New Mexico. I felt like you were a great player and you were one of the guys that we really, really wanted. But when you made that decision, I honored that and we really worked hard on you because we knew you were going to be a really good player. But you had to make a decision, and you made that decision.
Well, and I just have so many great fond memories of, I went up to the basketball camp. Probably things you don't, we went to and I had a great camp, and it was up in Rio Dosa.
Yep.
Went up there into the camp, and I had some coach that had me, and we played games, and
yep.
he said, Steve, don't give the ball up. Get the rebound, come down and shoot it. That was the whole lot. So he just gave me, for whatever reason, that gave me so much confidence for the rest of my life. He said, just come down, and I'll never forget. I woke up one morning and I listened to the radio, and I woke up to the radio and the sports, and my name came up. Y'all had sent all my scores all that week to the radio station, and it was like, I was like, are they really talking about me? But so you started my career, and the media started my career.
Well, talking about Rio Dosa brings back a lot of memories. To me, that camp that we had there we had a lot of good kids there, a lot of players that came in there, and Adam Beadle, of course, and people like that were there, but a lot of good players there. And one of the things I remember, Steve, it was like may have been my first or second year at that camp. I was a young guy. I started coaching at New Mexico State when I was 21 years old. So we would come down, and of course, as you know, that camp was held, at a high school there, and we would put bunk beds in there. And I was in charge of the little guys, the young guys one night for that week. And I never forget, I put all those guys to bed. And, of course, I was tired, and I laid down and went to sleep. And later on that night, Coach Henson comes in and taps me on the shoulder and said, where are all the kids? And I looked around, and nobody was in the room. They had all let me go to sleep and got up and had walked over to the bowling alley, and they were over there bowling. So I learned not to go to sleep too early. I'd make sure they were down before I went.
Well, I got one Lou Henson story during that week, and he calls me in. How matter of fact he was and everything. He called me, and there was a checkerboard.
Oh, geez. Okay, I know where you're going with this one.
Okay, so there was a checkerboard, and I'm kind of looking at him, and he goes, "Let's play checkers." And I'm like, where's this going? I mean, we're in a basketball camp. He's got me in his little deal. We got checkers, and we play. Of course, he won. Right?
Oh, geez.
I realized he was like a master checker player. That deal, and so what you don't know from that story is I went back and all I did was play checker and chess. So I became a checker and chess player just from Lou Henson. So
well, Steve, he was a master at checkers. He's from OK, Oklahoma, a little bitty town, not very many people there. So he used to go and play checkers with those old guys. He told me, at the pool hall when he was a young boy. So he learned how to play, and then I learned to play dominoes from my dad and my uncles, those old guys, and And so he picked up dominoes. And when I was coaching with him, almost every day at lunch, he'd say, well, let's go to the house and get a sandwich and let's play some dominoes. So we'd go there, and I'm telling you, Steve, it's just like we were playing basketball because it was so competitive. He was competitive, I was competitive, and we could never, ever agree to who won the game. We argued. So he finally got to a point to where, who had the most wins. So he finally got to a point to where he started keeping score in a little bitty book, a little bitty notepad that he had there. And he always carried it around in his wallet for years, even after, I started being a head coach. He would always pull that out, and he'd say, I'm 3 games ahead of you. I said, Coach, your math is wrong. But we argued about that, but it was so competitive.
Well, I tell you, like I said, little things like that have stuck with me, and it's, as a coach, you don't realize what you do for other people, just even if you don't even coach them. Okay, and it's been, I lost my dad, and coaches have been, my savior just because of the competitiveness, but also the ability to give guidance.
Well, Steve, when I started coaching, I always tell young coaches, and I still do now, when you're a coach, you have so much influence on young people. And I tell them, don't ever give up on a kid. A kid might have some issues. Don't give up on a kid, because I learned over the years that young guys, they mature differently at different ages. I tell them, I said, I've seen young guys that were very mature at 17, 18 years old. But I've also seen guys that don't mature until they're 40. So don't ever give up on young people. And that's been a savior for me, because I've had guys that look back and reach back and tell me, Coach, you made a huge impact on my life. And that's why I got into coaching, Steve, because to be honest with you, I saw my high school coach, Ralph Tasker. I saw the impact that he made on young kids. I saw what Lou Henson did. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to make impact on young people.
You've been, you grew up in a maybe a perfect time. Maybe not at the time you were growing up, you thought, but when you look back, you brought up Ralph Tasker, and I was fortunate to get to play against him. I never won. I had my best games against Ralph Tasker, and I'd look up at the scoreboard, and we'd be down 30 at the end of the game. And I had like 20. I can almost remember my game. I had like 27, 31, 37, 35 points. And I look at the scoreboard, and we lost by 30, 35 points. And that was a home and a deal. So basically, my 6 years of being there, I never won. So, but I did get revenge. I was assistant coach at Sandy, and we beat Hobbs at Hobbs one time in my career. So,
well, I tell you, that you're not the only guy there. My 3 years in high school there, the varsity, we only lost 4 games. 2 of them, and one in my junior year, we lost, of course, to Roswell High School. We beat them 3 times during the year and lost to them by 1 point in the championship game of the state tournament. And then my senior year, exact same things happened again. We beat them 3 times, home and home, and then in the game before the state tournament. And then we lost to them 1 point again in the championship game. So not a lot of people beat Hobbs during that year. So don't feel bad about that.
Well, you know what? I don't. I mean, it's more of a. I really, actually, for a rivalry, I have so much respect for Hobbs. But we're going to go to a break. We're going to Everguard Roofing and Solar break and top 10 plays of the week, and then we'll come back and talk more about.
I look forward to it.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Skyward. Uh-oh, going deep, 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 deep. Bye-bye. That didn't look like it had anything going. And it just kept fading. If you look at the flags, they're at a dead standstill. And Ryan Hutchison just deposited it.
Chavez, a nice cut towards center field. That one finds a seam. Grady will round third, and she's going to take home plate. So an RBI double for Jordan Chavez makes the score 8-6 in the bottom of the second.
And now we've got a stolen base. 10th throw looks like it's on time, and so was the tag. Out! Long as they were looking to have that ball. Beautiful throw.
There's a shot. That's going to get over the shortstop. That's going to bring in 2 runs. Maybe not. Oh, he missed the tag. So coming across.
Through the left side, Romero is being sent all the way and lost out in left field. It's a walk-off single for Aiden Gonzalez.
That one shot to center field. Catch. Fires forward. There's going to be a play at the plate. Got him. What a throw from center field. Chase Rivera.
We would like to thank the following sponsors for making this broadcast possible. For over 20 years, Evergard Roofing and Solar has been committed to customer service. Locally owned and operated, Evergard offers both commercial and residential roofing and solar services. For more info, please call 505-821-9543. Evergard Roofing and Solar are proud supporters of ProView Sports Network and New Mexico Youth Athletics.
Hey, welcome back to the Steve Davis Show. We got Rob Evans, New Mexico Hall of Famer and also a legend in New Mexico. But you're making national news night right now, and talk about that documentary that is been aired and is going to be seen a lot over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Steve, I do have a documentary out, and it's called Paving the Way. It's, you can see it on a lot of different entities. It's on a lot of different, it's on ESPN, it's on Netflix, it's on Hulu, I guess, Tubi. It's on a lot of different entities. And what it does, it talks about my life in Hobson, New Mexico, growing up as a young kid, then then on to high school there. Growing up in the 40s and 50s, which was a little tough time for some of us at that particular point. But then on to Lubbock Christian College, junior college, and why I went to Lubbock Christian Junior College, because I had a few scholarships to major colleges. My mother said, no, you're going to go to junior college. You start off small, and the only place you can go is up. So that's what you're going to do. And then to New Mexico State, and then on the rest of my life as far as coaching and different things. So it's a documentary that I hope people will enjoy. My son, Damon Evans, who has business in Scottsdale, Arizona, was mostly responsible for it. And now I've had a lot of people that have responded to it, and it's all over the country. And my son says it's going all over Europe and everywhere else. So hopefully people will enjoy it.
Well, I tell you, you brought up something that I didn't know you went to Lubbock. I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I was kind of looking at your biography and everything, and I didn't realize, that you started at Lubbock and then went on to New Mexico State.
Well, Steve, the people don't know. A lot of people don't know, but I went to junior college in Lubbock Christian, 1964 to 66. And Texas Tech from Lubbock Christian is only about 3 miles down the road. And in 1966, I really wanted to go to Texas Tech. But in 1966, Southwest Conference was not recruiting any black players at that time. There were no black players in the Southwest Conference, so I didn't have an opportunity to go there. I was offered a scholarship and took a visit to Baylor. Baylor was offering me a scholarship. I was going to be the first black athlete basketball player to play in the Southwest Conference. My mom and my dad grew up in Waco, Texas. My grandmother lived there, so my mother really wanted me to go. And I took the visit to Carol Dawson, who eventually ended up being the general manager of the Houston Rockets, was recruiting me. He was assistant coach there. And I went there, and I had a bad experience there in the cafeteria when I went there. So I ended up catching a plane back home and didn't go there. But I always tell people, and that was in 1966. And in 1975, I went back as the first Afro-American assistant coach at Texas Tech. So within 10 years, things had changed a little bit. So a lot of people don't know that story. And also the other part of that story is that one of my teammates was a guy by the name of Gerald Turner. And Gerald Turner was from New Boston, Texas, and of course he and I hit it off pretty well, and we spent a lot of time talking about a lot of things, race relations, life in general. In 1966, that was something that was very interesting. And later on, probably 20 years later, he's the chancellor of the University of Mississippi. And he ends up hiring me as the first Afro-American coach in any sport at Ole Miss.
Well, and I tell you what, he made the right decision, because I didn't know that. I just read up on all this, and I really didn't want to get on all your accolades. I think that's for the movie and all that stuff. But I just was amazed. I mean, they didn't have a winning season. You went in there the first year and had a winning season. I think you won by the deal, and then you beat Kentucky. You made the NCAA tournament. I mean, what a hire at that time.
Well, when I was offered the job, I was actually at Oklahoma State with Eddie Sutton, and Bill Self was assistant with me, and we had gone to the Sweet 16 2 years in a row, and so I got offered the job. I got offered the Baylor job. I got offered the Rice job, and the Ole Miss job, all in 1 week. And when
so you had to make decisions like I did, huh? You were like,
well, when we were on the road playing in the Sweet 16, when Ole Miss called me and said, we want you to come be the coach at Ole Miss. And I went to Coach Sutton in his room, and I said, Coach, Ole Miss just offered me the job. And he said, don't take it. He said, it's a graveyard for coaches. He said, you can take Henry Iver, you can take John Wooden, and you can take Adolph Rupp. all three together can't win at Ole Miss. And I said, well, Coach, I just happen to think that I can win there. And I went to my wife and I said, we have these 3 job offers. Which one do you want to take? And she said, well, I've not been any farther south than Texas, so let's take one of the Texas jobs. Steve, I had recruited, when I first started coaching at New Mexico State, I had started recruiting the South, and Mississippi was a lot of my territory back in the mid-'60s, late 60s. And so I told her, I said, no, I think there's some things that we can do at Ole Miss, and there's things we can do in the state of Mississippi to improve some things, and I think that's where we need to go. And so we ended up going there, and we did have some success there at Ole Miss.
And you also coached at Arizona State, and I got some stories about you, stories you don't even know about this. So you played my best friend from high school, Dick Huntsaker, Utah Valley State.
Yes.
So I was there at the game. Okay, I had tickets. I was sitting in a really nice spot, and Dylan. It was one of those games that Dick came out on top. But that summer before that game, you got him tickets to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I was his guest. So you got me tickets to the Arizona Diamondbacks. I want to thank you. It's been a long time, but you I don't know if you even knew that, but you gave him to Dick, and I was with him that during that time.
I do seem to remember something about that, but it's just bringing back memories. But Dick Hunsaker and I were really good friends, Steve. So I hated to lose to him, but if you're going to lose to somebody, you want to lose to your friends.
Well, I remember that day. I had to do practice. He was. So I was actually I was with him, and one of his players went down, and so I was a scout guy, and Dick was jumping me out like I was one of his players. It was like I wasn't in my defensive stance.
He had a lot of success. What is he doing now?
You know what? He's taking life great. He's retired, taking care of his grandkids, and keeps up with everything. I mean, he'll be probably watching this show right now. So,
well, he had a lot of success.
He did, and then the other thing I want to speak of, you're a New Mexico guy. I mean, and I look at your recruits, and I'd like to speak on those. I mean, it was both white and blacks. I mean, Bubba Jennings. I mean, just go through the list of people that you recruited from New Mexico.
Well, a lot of people didn't think there were really good players in New Mexico. I knew there were, but I recruited Truman Ward, to New Mexico State. Larry Robinson to New Mexico State. My cousin Steve Smith to Texas Tech, Jeff Taylor, Vince Taylor, Kent Williams, Tony Benford. There's just so many. I mean, Bubba Jennings, Nelson Franz. Yeah. Nelson Franz. I know I'm going to forget somebody, but I had so many. And then, what's my Troy Brewer. I recruited him to Ole Miss. He ended up going to New Mexico State, but there are just so many good players that I had the good fortune of recruiting that turned out to be really good players. And man, God, Bubba was one of the best. And I worried so much about recruiting him. I was so afraid I was going to lose him. I almost lost him to SMU and other different people, but never forget the day I went over and we ended up signing. We actually had a plane fly over Clovis with a sign saying, "Come to Texas Tech." He ended up coming and just not only a great player, but just a tremendous person. And all of those guys, Steve, the thing that set them apart is they were so competitive, and they were gym rats. They worked so hard, and all of them got better and the good part about it is all of them are very successful now.
Well, the thing that is amazing about Bubba Jennings, he was an overachiever. I mean, he wasn't. I mean, just he was, if I remember correct, he's Southwest Player of the Year. Okay,
Yeah.
and he might be 6 foot. Okay,
About 5'10".
5'10". Well, it seems like he's grown since I've seen him. But and just what a person, and I think it speaks on all those players you just talked about, is that they had something that inside them that wasn't coachable. They had a willing to win that you picked up on, and you went hard. You guys went hard recruiting me, and I can just imagine getting those players come in, and then your whole legacy just began with getting players from New Mexico, and then they had great careers, and then also great afterwards.
Yeah, first of all, Brooks Jennings, his dad, I was really fortunate. I played in the All-Star game for his dad, and it was Henry, Coach Henry.
Coach Henry.
Yeah,
You're right.
I played for them in the All-Star game, so I knew a little bit about them. And Brooks Jennings was so gracious to me and very honest with me about everything, and so really helped me. You remember Pascal Pollard?
Yes, I do. I know of him. Okay, I just remember the legend.
Pascal was a good friend. He was on the All-Star team with me and got me in trouble because because my dad's car broke down on the way to Albuquerque. I got to the meeting, and the meeting was over when I got. So I asked Pascal. I said, "What time's curfew?" And he said, "Curfew's at 11 o'clock." I said, "Okay." And so we ended up going down to some places, and when it got to be 10 o'clock, I said, "Pascal, we better hurry back, man. It's got an hour to get back." And he said, "Rob, man, I'm sorry. I lied to you, man." He said, "Curfew was at 10 o'clock. So we get back late, and so Coach Henry and Brooks Jennings put us on we were on restrictions. Everybody else got those tickets, show pass tickets and everything else, but he told us that either he was going to send us home or we were going to be on restrictions. And he said, you guys can go to the cafeteria and eat, you can go to practice and back to your room. So for a whole week, the whole time we were there, that's all we were able to do. And it really worked good for me because all I was able to do was concentrate on basketball. And we had a great game, and we ended up beating the North, I think, by about 30 that night. But Pascal Pollard, I'll never forget him for that. And I told him that too.
Well, I tell you what, things are coming into mind. I didn't realize that actually Brooks coached you, and then Bubba. I mean, you had a relationship with that from when you played in high school.
Oh, absolutely. Had a great relationship with him, and then when Bubba came to Tech, I in practice sometimes I would be, first of all, when I would go over and watch him play when they play Hobbs. And I remember the first time I went over to watch him play, they had played in Clovis, Hobbs and Clovis, and I think Bubba had about 35-40 that night. And he came to Hobbs to play the next game, and so I'm sitting up with some of my former friends, teammates, former players there, and they hadn't seen it play. All they knew was his name, Bubba Jennings. And so I'm sitting up there with him, and they said, "Rob, which one of these guys is," they were looking down on the floor, "which one of these guys is Bubba?" And with that name, they thought he was a black guy.
Right.
So I said, "It's that number, whatever Bubba's number was." I said, "It's that number 10 there." And they said, "That's him?" And I said, "Yeah." They said, "Well, he won't get 40 on us tonight." And they were right. He didn't get 40. He got 45 that night.
Well, I tell you, Rob, hey, we're going to come to a close. I want to, thank you on your documentary. Thanks for taking the time for, doing the show with me, but also thanks for being part of my life. I mean, you really have helped me just watching your career and everything like that. And I just, want to give you my personal thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And just so proud to be from New Mexico. And proud to have all the experiences and all the friends that I have in New Mexico, and I hope that the documentary Paving the Way will encourage somebody and some kids somewhere along the way, or some people to no matter how difficult things are, to keep striving.
Well, I think we're going to cut you off, but hey, thanks a lot and appreciate you.
Thank you, Steve.